And I actually expected that I just get a bunch of videos, like pretty much in the YouTube videos, but just more. And I was blown away the next day when I had your personal message on the app greeting me personally. And I was like, what is this?
Maren, if you think about it, when you started with us and you had this slap tear and frozen shoulder, and you really took that dive where your pain just became so severe that you could barely move your arm, and we had to really scale right back on all of the shoulder rehab we were doing to allow the frozen shoulder to take care of itself. And you've gone from that to where you are now, where you're really pushing forward with your training again, and you're doing bouldering and everything like that. Of course, Yanni doesn't actually know your story. And for everybody that's listening, can you just tell us why you first came to the UMS and where you were back then? Like where were you at that place?
So I joined a year ago. So in 23, I had a bouldering fall. I fell out of that was my main sport, bouldering, and I fell out of the wall and I subluxated my shoulder. And so I could feel it pop out, but it popped straight back in. And so I took a bit of a break from bouldering, just maybe 1 week or so, and I thought I could continue, but I could feel that the shoulder wasn't right. So because of my job, I thought I can do everything myself. I didn't need to go to a doctor, so I started Googling and YouTubing, and started trying some exercises, and it got worse and worse and worse. And so eventually I went to a doctor, of course, and had the MRI scan, and it turned out that I had, by that time, developed a frozen shoulder, which is an inflammation of the capsule, but also a slap tear, which continued into the biceps tendon, a tiny fracture, and a few minor muscle tears. And then I started some physio, and I actually had contact to 3 physios. And the first one just said immediately, "Oh, I have no idea about shoulders. That's too complicated. Go and ask somebody else." Wow. The second one, well, actually, I think that was good, because the shoulder is such a complex joint.
Yeah, it is.
So I think that was the most trustworthy physio of all of them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And the other 2 were pretty much just giving me the typical, with the band, that you just do like this, or that you tie the band to one spot and do like this, and mainly massaging stuff. And I knew immediately that all this, as I said, it's my profession, so all this massaging stuff I think is absolute rubbish for if you want to do rehab. That helps for a few minutes, and that was it. And I was convinced that I can train myself out of it. And I underestimated the frozen shoulder completely. So I continued Googling, and I found your video about slap tear. And and in between I went to a, what do you call that? A personal trainer. Mm-hmm. Because we had one just around the corner, and he was saying that, advertising that he does rehab as well. And he was convinced that he could pretty much break open the shoulder. So he gave me absolutely ridiculous exercises, and he manipulated with some rubber bands wrapping around my shoulder and pretty much stretching it open. And that was horrible. Yeah, seriously.
That sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen.
I was so, I can't think of the English word, devastated pretty much, because I had the feeling that nobody could help me. And I knew there must be a way, but I couldn't find the person who can do it. And so then I stumbled over your video, and I watched it, and I tried this thing with the ball on the wall. And then I was like, shall I try it? I mean, it's over the internet. It's a bit dodgy, you know, like giving your Visa card details to somebody, you have no idea who it is, and then what happens. And then my husband actually said, you know what, try it because Visa is insured. And so I first wrote you an email because I wanted to know if there's an actual person behind it.
Yeah, I remember.
And yeah, and you answered straight away, and you answered very personal. So I was like, oh, that sounds good. And then I signed up, and I actually expected that I just get a bunch of videos, like pretty much in the YouTube videos, but just more. And I was blown away the next day when I had your personal message on the app greeting me personally. And I was like, what is this? Yeah, and then you set up the program for me. And the first phase was actually helping, and I was over the moon. But then when we went into the second phase, it got worse. And I must say, I had the doctor had prescribed me cortisone pills because I was absolutely refusing to have the injection in the shoulder, and that's pretty much the only thing you can get here. And luckily, my doctor also said we're not doing the shoulder injection because that is something you actually don't really do anymore nowadays.
Yeah, wow.
It can cause, when you do it once, it's okay, but when you do it more than once, it can cause scars in the joint. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know that, and doctors just do it all the time. I think it's really, you can take pills for just a few days and it's fine. It's the same thing. So I took cortisone pills, and the inflammation settled down completely. That was just before I joined you guys. And so when you put me into phase 2, it got really bad again. And I actually got worried that you would kick me out because I wasn't getting anywhere, and I was just moaning about how every exercise was bad. Then you had the interview with Phil, and that changed everything, where he said, just stop doing what you're doing, leave the shoulder alone, just do leg works. And then you put me on all the leg exercises, and at the same time I started running. And that totally changed my mindset, because suddenly I was achieving something in sports again. Suddenly I could do something again, because that shoulder injury took me out of my whole life. I couldn't do any of my hobbies anymore. I couldn't even get dressed without pain. I couldn't use a mouse at work. I had to use a trackball, because that little movement that you do with the mouse, that was already increasing the pain so badly. I've never had this kind of pain before, and I've born children, so I know what pain is. Yeah. And then everything doing with the legs, that just totally changed everything again that's just my attitude towards everything. And then I could just let my shoulder be and do sports again, have success in sports again. Yeah. And the shoulder healed up.
And before we continue, because I want to kind of do a part 2 to your story from that point to where you are now. But before we continue, I want to provide some context for Yanni, because he doesn't know about all this communication that we had, but also for any of our listeners. So for anybody that's watching this, Phil is a physiotherapist that we work with, or if you're in America, a physical therapist, who's really, really good with sports injuries. And Phil is the guy, he's a good friend of Yanni and mine. He worked with us at Unity Gym for the better part of 10 years. And whenever there's an injury that we're dealing with, or if somebody isn't responding the way that we would expect them to the training that we're giving, Phil is the guy that we go to get advice on injuries. And so the video that Marin's talking about is, I said, look, before working with you, I'd rehabilitated 3 frozen shoulders, 2 on the same person, 1 on a different person. But it was several years ago, and I just needed to brush myself up on some knowledge. And so I said, look, I'll do an interview with Phil, and I'll ask him more about frozen shoulder. So that's the video that Marin's talking about, and we'll link that in the description here for anybody that wants to watch it. Because what Phil basically said was that frozen shoulder is one of the very, very few injuries that I would ever say sometimes the best course of action is actually to do nothing and to just allow the frozen shoulder to sort of de-thaw. Almost any other sports injury to the shoulder, inaction and rest is one of the worst things that you can do for it because of muscle atrophy and all the other things that go on. But frozen shoulder really goes against the grain with that. And so that's just reference for that. And also the one other thing that I wanted to say before, if Yanni wants to chime in and ask anything before you continue your story, just for the viewers and for me so that I clearly understand, what is it that you do for work, Maren? You've referred several times saying because of what I do for work. So what do you do for work?
I'm a doctor. I specialized in anesthesia first, and then I worked as a GP and also specialized in being a GP for about 6 years. And I changed profession into a different subject a year ago. So at the moment, I'm not working as a GP anymore, but I'm still a doctor.
I remember when that happened. I remember that was a really exciting moment for you when you changed.
Yes, it is still. It was the best job choice ever.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
I want to just rewind a little bit because there's a really powerful message in what you shared there in your story that I think a lot of people will benefit from if we double click into it, which is that for most of our lives, we're all adults here, for most of our lives, we have been demographically and environmentally constrained to the help that we can get. But the internet and the age of the internet, the rise of the internet has opened up our network to such a degree. And, you know, you were even apprehensive or, dare I say, dogmatic about clicking into an online program and trusting it. But what I've come to learn and what Rad and I have both experienced over the last couple of decades is that if we hadn't have sort of been coached by people in other countries, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are now. You know, we have had access to people who were so much more knowledgeable and experienced than the people that we'd find at our local gym or even our local physio clinic or medical practice, you know. And as a result of our profession, we've built a network of people around the world who we, you know, cross paths with every year, who have specializations or specialties in slightly different fields like bodybuilding, like physical therapy or rehab or flexibility work. Rad trained with a coach, Joachim,
calisthenics or, you know, whatever
Belgium and Israel. And, you know, like we've worked with people all over the world. And I think this is something that we should definitely not just pass over. I would love to try to, I guess, leave our audience with the confidence to feel okay that working with someone online is actually in many ways better than face-to-face because you're not sort of environmentally and demographically constrained, you know, to just who you've got down the street or local. Like the first physio you saw didn't work with shoulders at all, just wasn't knowledgeable. At least they were honest, you know, because the personal trainer that you tried to work with sounds like a disaster, you know. I mean, the one thing we all know about frozen shoulder is that you have to progress so gradually and carefully. And the exercises are often about just getting millimeters of movement and then building on that slowly into a new range that you can develop. Literally the worst thing you could possibly do is force a frozen shoulder, you know, literally it doesn't get worse than that. And so, yeah, I guess the message there that I would just like to double click on is, you know, don't be afraid of an online program. I absolutely think you should question everything, you know, question everything, but have the confidence to know that online means access to knowledge. And often it's that access that you need. We have so many of our tribes say, what is it that you guys do that's so special? I've worked with you for a few months and you've fixed something that I've been trying to work with my local practitioners for years and we haven't got anywhere, you know? So yeah, I would say have the confidence to take the plunge if you're considering working online with someone, because often they are going to give you access to a level of knowledge and expertise that you just won't find locally.
You know what's...
I've actually had...
No, you go, Maren.
No, I just want to say I've had the experience with other things as well, where I found solutions online better than here. So...
Yeah, because you've got access to everybody in the world online.
Yeah.
You know, you do.
Naturally, we want to. And I feel the same way. I want to go somewhere close. Like I went and worked with a psychologist for the very first time in my life this year. And my natural instinct was to find someone up the road here that I could just go to a clinic, you know, their place and have a look. And now I'm sort of looking at online options because I just can't find anyone I like around here, you know. But I run an online business and I'm dogmatic about it, you know. It's hilarious.
Yeah. It's funny what you said, what that physio said about shoulders as well. The first one saying, oh, shoulders are too complicated, I wouldn't touch them. Just a really quick story for myself. When I got out of the army, Yanni and I became personal trainers together. We did it for 2 years in separate gyms, and then I joined the army for 4 years. And when I was in the army for 4 years, Yanni did a lot of upskilling, did a lot of work, you know, working with people to become a better personal trainer. And when I came out of the army, he was so far ahead of me with my knowledge. And I used to hear him talking to clients about shoulders and about this muscle and that muscle and everything. And I just had no idea. And one day I said to him, I said, man, I've really got to learn more about shoulders because so many people have got problems. And he gave me this kind of manual of like, read this. And I was reading through it and trying to do it, but I just wasn't confident with what I was talking about at all. And the only way that I got confident with it was when I had my own shoulder injuries, when I had slap tears. Because when I had slap tears, I was forced to learn about it, and I was so hungry to get back to full capacity without surgery. And I was working with physiotherapists that I was just absorbing this information. But because I was doing it myself, and they were explaining to me in the process of what I was doing and what I was rebuilding and how it was happening, that was the only way that I was able to become an expert on shoulders. And I would have been the same before that. If somebody came to me and said, I've got this shoulder problem, I would have gone, oh, yeah, I'm not the right guy for it. Because it is so complex, isn't it?
Same with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, same with me. As a GP, I had the same thing, that I only fully understood the shoulder after my surgery.
Yeah.
Injury.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to know why the shoulder joint is so complicated, it's because it's the joint that's got more range of motion than any other joint. It's the least stable of any other joint. You've got this ball and socket joint, but it's kind of like this, it kind of sits on top of the socket. It's not like the hip where it sits like that, where it's enclosed. So it has this massive range of motion, or this huge function, more muscles controlling the one joint than any other joint, and the potential to dislocate more than any other joint. It's also the most unstable. So it's just this incredibly complex joint. Sorry, Yanni.
No, I was going to say the same thing, but I think that the only reason why I picked up on any of the human anatomy is because I was an engineer prior to being a personal trainer. I was a mechanical engineer, and there's so many crossovers. Once you apply logic to everything, every joint is a force coupling, similar to in an engineering environment, and I could look at the anatomy and sort of go, okay, yeah, that makes sense, you know. But I did the same thing. I dislocated my shoulder, did a slap tear, tore the whole anterior labrum off the bone, and I really just needed to know how to navigate it really without hurting it or making it worse. And so I went really deep into shoulder anatomy for a couple of years.
Yeah, only way to do it. So Maren, back to you. So we know what you mean when you say what I do for a living. So we've talked about the past. One thing that I do want to highlight as well, Yanni highlighted something about your story. It's so powerful what you said about when you couldn't train the shoulder the way that you wanted to, but we shifted your focus to legs. And I remember doing that with you. I remember saying, Maren, we're going to shift your focus to doing leg training and doing other things, and you're going to find a sense of satisfaction in something else. And I was able to do that because I was forced to do it myself. When I started doing calisthenics training, back when I was about 36 or 37, my upper body was just so unprepared for it. And in order of the weakest to the strongest joints, they broke down. The first thing was my wrist, then it was my elbow, and then it was my shoulder. I sprained my wrist, couldn't do any handstands or anything for several months. Golfer's elbow and tennis elbow. My elbow, couldn't do any pulling or pushing for several months, and then eventually slap tears, but the slap tears came later. And during that period of not being able to do handstands, not being able to do pull-ups, not being able to do chest pressing and things like that, I just said, oh, well, I'm just going to really focus on flexibility in my hips. You know, I can still train my lower body, and I got really good at flexibility. I got really flexible in that time. So I knew that approach of doing it. So that was it's a powerful thing, isn't it, Maren? When you can kind of just find a way to find success in another area of your body. And that led
There's always something you can do.
And that led to some things for you as well, didn't you? You started doing marathons and stuff like that.
No, not marathon, just a normal city run. But I hated running forever before that.
Yeah.
So I totally got into running now, and I enjoy it. And I continue. Good. So now I have to split my time between the UMS, the running, and my normal life.
Hey.
Did you ever go back to bouldering?
Oh, yes.
Well, so let's talk about that. Take us from the point where, you know, you were only able to train your legs and you just weren't able to train your shoulders. And then when you came back to me, I can't remember when it was, but I remember you said, my frozen shoulder's starting to feel better. Can I start doing a little bit more of shoulder rehab? Talk us through what happened from there to where you are now.
So this video with Phil and me starting leg work, that was May 24. So I joined UMS in January 24, I think, or February. And then the interview, the video with Phil was in May. Then in autumn, like maybe in October, November, I felt that it was really good again. And I wanted to restart the shoulder rehab, but then I got sick with something else, had to pause again, which was good because I think the shoulder wasn't ready then. And then I properly started the shoulder rehab again in January. And I think it's been beginning of May that I started bouldering again. And it went immediately and it went absolutely awesome. I could do things that I could do when I stopped bouldering. So it was like my strength hasn't really left me, just my finger strength has left me. So it was incredible. I thought I have to start from zero, and it wasn't like that. Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm bouldering again.
That's so good. So good.
That's fantastic. Finger strength is so specific. You know, you have to Brad and I actually do a little bit of finger. I'm doing a lot right now. I have my little finger bands that I'm doing to spread my fingers and all this, and I've got grip crushers here, but we don't really do that much of it in the UMS because it's just so tedious and specific, you know. But even me, when I go
actually do.
Yeah, go on.
For bouldering, you really have to do the gripping on the holds and the grip board and all that. It just these little devices, they don't really do much. But it's coming back. It's fine. I mean, I don't need exercise for that. I just do the bouldering. So
because finger strength is quite specific. Like the strength that you need to be able to grip onto a bar or crush like that is very different to the strength that you need to be able to grip onto something like this, which is even different to the strength that you need to be able to grip like that. You know, it's really, really different. So, There's
an enormous transformation, like adaptation, when you see a climber who's like been doing it for a long time. I've got friends that climb and they do like proper outdoor free solo climbing, you know. Simon Swalwell, Brad, is one. You know, when you see their hand, they have ugly fingers because they don't have fingernails anymore, but they have thick fingers, man. Like the strength of the finger just adapts, and it's just wild. I have a friend he's been in America for ages now, and he runs tours. He's a tour guide for climbing and up in the Rockies in Northern America and near Canada. And they live in Seattle, and he's coming back to Australia, and he's always trying to get me to go climbing or mountaineering. I'm like, dude, like your level of climbing is just, it's very elite, you know, like, but you're strong and fit. I'm like, no, not that type of strong and fit.
Yeah. But
I'm not doing it in a big thing. I'm just doing it recreationally. So
Yeah, but that's a big thing, Maren, you know, because to go to, you know, when we're getting older, for a lot of people, when they get a frozen shoulder or a slap tear, and you had both, that's the death sentence for the thing that they used to love doing. You know, we see that with so many people because they don't unfortunately, they don't get access to work with somebody that knows how to take them from where they are to where they want to go. And they work with someone that tries to rip their shoulder back into the position that they want it to be in. And things just get worse, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or worse, they end up working with a physical therapist or physiotherapist who just puts them in an injury identity loop where you're just in constant rehab, you know. And rehab, one of the things that I loved about Phil's methodology and what he used to do with his patients in Unity Gym is that he said rehab is not like putting you in the naughty corner and abstaining from the things that you love. Rehab is training in the presence of an injury. So we adapt your routine to work around that injury. And in the most extreme cases, like what you did where you focus on different styles of exercise for a while until the body sorts itself out. But, you know, in most cases, injury heals itself if you just get out of the way. If you stimulate the body in the right way, if you structurally balance, if you train for structural balance and really balance the body, then the injury sorts itself out. You know, you don't need to do these specific band exercises for the rest of your life and all this sort of stuff as a lot of practitioners would have you believe, you know.
And also these band exercises did absolutely nothing, because now I know, because it was just the wrong exercise at that time. Because of course you also do the exercises with the band, but in a different way. And later, after you sorted out the scapular stabilizers, and that nobody cared about the scapula in physio, and they didn't even look whether I was pulling up my shoulder, or because in the beginning I did so many extra movements. I could see that on the videos, because I mean, when I filmed myself for you guys, that I'm kind of doing movements around the actual exercise, because my shoulder couldn't do it because the range of motion was so badly limited that my body made all weird kind of stuff to try and do the movement.
Compensates, yep.
Yeah, and these physios, they didn't even look at that, you know.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a couple of things that I want to hone in on that you've said there, because obviously I'm sure there's going to be some people that are watching this that have got a frozen shoulder, that are going through a similar experience than you, and that are looking for a solution, and that are probably watching this and still thinking, oh, this online coaching, you know, how could it really work? But there's a couple of things that you've said there. The first one is that the physios that Yanni and I befriended over 2 decades now of being personal trainers are some of the best in the world. And they're the reason why we continue to go to them. Yanni aligned himself with a guy named Leroy Lobo probably 18 years ago, probably right in the early stages when we became personal trainers.
2006.
2006, yeah, so 19 years ago. And he went on to become the head physio for one of Australia's elite football clubs. And he then went on from there to go and work with the NBA in America, and then he's even gone on from there. And to be at that level, like, that's the kind of job that every single physiotherapist in the world wants to get. You know, when you become a physio, everybody has the dream of working with elite athletes and making 6 figures a year for it. So the physios that actually get those jobs, they are the best. They're on a different level. And I've been to the physios like what you're describing. I've been to so many of them that I ended up getting a dogmatic opinion on physios that they were just rubbish. I just thought physios are rubbish. Like, the stuff that they give you is just so bad. And then, of course, working with somebody like Leroy, it's just on a completely different level. And what my experience was when I went to a physio for my slap tear and when I went to a doctor was that they just give you this terrible advice. It's like, just do a couple of these exercises and, you know, take these tablets and come back and we'll see you in a week or two. And when I saw Leroy, it was a completely different approach. The approach that I had from Leroy is exactly the approach that I did for you, because we boxed that and systemized it and put it into what we do with the UMS. But partly the reason why their approach is so much better is because they are so much better than other physios. But another part is because their entire job revolves around getting an athlete back onto the field as quick as possible. And they're used to dealing with people who are high performers and who are going to do the work that they give them to do and some. You know, like when a professional athlete gets injured, their career is on the line and they go to work and do what the physio tells them to do. They don't kind of go, oh yeah, whatever, and they come back a week later and say, oh, I didn't really do that work. You know, like they're really doing the work that the physio gives them. So those kind of physios, they give you things to do that the average physio doesn't give you, you know. So that's the first thing. That's one of the reasons why what you did with us was so effective. Another one is that it's the technique optimization that you get through video feedback that you often don't get in a face-to-face physio or consultation. Like I didn't even get the technique optimization, which is, to clarify what you described about saying, oh, you know, when your shoulder's moving around, hey, you get told you should keep it here and do it like this. I didn't even get that from Leroy when I was working with him. He kind of just looked at me and said, do this exercise. And I said, like this. And he went, yeah, like that. Just make sure you keep your arm like this and bang. And that was the end of it. But because I'm a personal trainer and I was able to understand that information that he was giving me, I could turn that into something that produced a result. But the value of being able to film yourself and have a coach look at it and say, you need to keep your shoulder this way when you do it and you move your arm that way. Don't let your shoulder move like that. Because you can re-watch the video. Because when you're in a consultation and they say, do it like this, do it like this, do it like this, do it like this, we don't remember all that information. But when you get a video where you can rewind it and say, oh, he's telling me to do that, then you can go and try it. Then you can watch the video again if you need to. In a way, that's even more valuable, you know. So that's a huge part of why you had so much success with it, you know, is this combination of the world-class physiotherapy that we built the system on and that level of technique optimization that other physiotherapists just aren't providing. You know, they're kind of just giving you the exercises and saying, off you go. Because the best exercises will do nothing for you if they're done incorrectly. Like the best exercise, you know, like this exercise, you know, that you're describing here, like an external rotation with a band, it seems like you might have been given that by a physio, and it's an incredible exercise. We use it with great success. But if you do it where your shoulder's like this, you won't have the result.
Or if you extend your elbow, even
or if you do
slide a bit and create the inertia so now you're working the tricep, not the rotator cuff, the subscapularis or the semimembranosus tendinosus.
Yep. If you do
small little things.
Yeah, any of those little things that you do incorrectly, you just won't have a result. You'll go through it. A month later, nothing will have changed, you know. So, yeah, I just wanted to sort of hone in on that. And when you started again back in January, how quickly did you feel that you progressed with it? Was it a slow journey, do you feel, or was it a fast journey? Was it a linear journey? You know, this year, how did it happen for you?
Well, two things is like, one, I wanted to start really slow because, of course, I was very worried that I would trigger the pain again. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is that I have a job, I have a family, so I don't have much time. And I'm not like one of these, you know, you have so many people in the UMS who are really like very muscular and doing weightlifting like crazy weights where I'll never get to. And I always have you saying like some is better than none. So often I just go to our basement and I just do 1 or 2 exercises just for like maybe 10, 15 minutes. And I don't even record that in the app. So often the app says I've missed a workout, but I've done a little bit, so you can't see that. Yeah. And so I extended the phases. I often ask you to extend the phase for these 2 reasons. And so it has been probably slower than it could have been, but it's perfect for me.
Yeah.
And I think it's not, it didn't feel slow at all, because from starting in January and then being back into bouldering full on in May that was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, you learn so much when you deal with a shoulder injury like this, don't you, Maren? Because it forces you to learn these concepts like load management that we teach you guys in the UMS that you probably never would have understood before, that really changes your mindset around training. You know, these slap tears for me, they completely changed the way that I train. They really did. from before the slap tear, I was 100% focused on being the best at whatever I did. Like whatever it was that I did, I wanted to be one of the best. I wanted to be able to compare myself with the best in the world at handstands or at calisthenics or at martial arts or whatever it was. But after the slap tears, because, you know, I had one, I rehabilitated it. And a month after I was like, oh, wow, I'm pain-free here. I did the other one. It was just horrible. And the second one was, I think I was 41, I think, when I did the second one. And that was the first time in my life for me where I really, really could see how much I'd taken my body for granted and what it meant to not be able to do the things that I wanted to be able to do. Because every other injury that I'd had in the past before that, except for my spine was the only one, the fractured spine. But all the other ones, I could still do things, you know, like if I hurt my wrist, like I could still do martial arts, I could still play around, I could still have fun. But these slap tears, they just stopped me from doing everything that I really enjoyed. And so now I measure success by just being 1% better than I was a week ago, you know. If I can just be the tiniest little bit better each week, then that's success. And I've had incredible results in the last 5 years with that approach, you know, with that idea of just embracing that some is better than none. And if I can just keep moving forward a little bit, then that's a really good thing to be at the age that I'm at now, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm also 45. I don't look like it, I know, but
yeah, you're
I'm
very
45.
young, yeah.
And if I imagine what I could have done in sports if I'd not had the knowledge that you guys gave me, because I've been active in sports my whole life. And now in hindsight, I think nobody has ever trained me properly with all this load management and progressive overload and all that in any sport.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Look, I trained as an amateur boxer for 16 years on and off, and at periods I trained with the head of the Australian boxing coaching committee, who trained Olympic athletes, and there was zero knowledge of this stuff there. And I was lucky enough twice to go to the Australian Institute of Sport on a weekend and be able to train with the professional athletes there. I was never a professional athlete, and yeah, I just was always quite shocked because I always subscribed for quite a while. I subscribed to the International Strength and Conditioning Journal, where I'd get sent a monthly, effectively a magazine on all the latest research coming out around the world for athletic performance in a variety of different sports, all sports. And there was a few times that they did specific articles on combat sports like boxing or mixed martial arts. And I was always really excited to take those to my coach and say, look at what they're doing in America and in here. And that's rubbish. You know, we just do what we're doing and whatever. And I was always like, wow, there's just no idea of proper load management. I ended up with terrible shin splints because we used to do all of this shuttle running on a tennis court and skipping and all this sort of stuff. And there was just zero time to recover in between it, you know, and yeah, it was just brutal. And I just thought, wow, how can the highest level coaching in the country be falling so short of such foundational principles that have stood the test of time in elite coaching, you know? It's quite bizarre, really. And to think that there are a lot of professionals out there that are providing guidance and treatment to people. I mean, what Rad spoke about before, where he sort of, I want to be careful not framing all physiotherapists and sports doctors as evil, because they're not. But there is a difference between general populations, the expectation and the way that they approach that, and athletes. You know, what Rad said there is very important. When a sports physio treats an athlete, the job is very different. The job is to get them back out, because they're costing that sporting institution or organization or company money being sidelined. You know, they're not no use to anybody, and so they have to get them back out on the field as quickly as possible. With general populations, it's quite different, because you know, they work on statistical data, and in most cases people don't follow through with the rehab very well, and so they're always sort of trying
and they're often dealing with
manage that.
they're often dealing with people that have absolutely zero passion or interest in movement. You know, I'm sure you deal with this.
That's why I gave up being a GP.
Yeah. You know, and so, you know, if you're the kind of person that is really passionate about movement and about bouldering or martial arts or calisthenics or whatever it is, then you want to work with somebody that knows how to deal with those people, you know?
Yeah. I had a funny reminder of this recently. Sorry, go on.
I must say that my doctor, when she diagnosed me, she already pretty much said what I should have done, but I didn't really listen. She said with the frozen shoulder, I have to do nothing, and I didn't believe her. I was like, because the problem is really with the people who don't want to do things. I had so many of these in the surgery who were not interested in actually doing anything for their back pain. They just wanted pills and just lie on the sofa. They didn't believe that you have to do exercise and all that. And also with other things like diabetes type 2, change your lifestyle, blah, blah, blah. Most people are not willing to put the effort in. So I was very much like, I'm not that kind of person. And I thought I can train out shoulder. And the other thing she said, which I disagree now, she said with the slap tear, I would probably need surgery, which no, I didn't. And I was very much like, no, I will not have a surgery and I will not rest. I will train this out of my body. And so I didn't help my frozen shoulder, but it definitely helped with the slap tear.
Yeah, I had a reminder of this recently.
She was good.
I recently had surgery on my hand. I broke a few of the bones in my hand here, and when I came out and started the physio after surgery, they said, look, they gave me a timeline of the way things were going to work, and I have a whole bunch of metal plates and screws and wire in the hand at the moment that has to come out. And I want it out as quickly as possible because I want to be able to get back to my boxing training and things like that. And they originally said it's going to take 6 months to come out. So you have to do the rehab for 6 months, and then we'll review, and then we'll book you in for surgery, get the metal work taken out, and then it'll be another few months before everything sort of heals, all the bones heal from where the screws have been removed, before you can go back to boxing. And after 4 weeks, I went back last week and had my checkup, and they couldn't believe it. They were like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, it's so much better than we expected. And they've bumped the surgery from 6 months to 3 months now. But initially, when I was going through the rehab with them and what they wanted me to do, and I had the physios, giving me the exercises they wanted to do, I said, can I do too much? And the surgeon and the doctor and the chief surgeon all said to me, yes, you are the absolute, you fall into the category of someone. We're not concerned you're not going to do enough. We're concerned you're going to do too much. So you absolutely can overdo it and cause harm to that hand. So please follow our guidelines, And of course, I did way more than they asked me to do, and I went straight.
Of course, I didn't listen to them.
I went straight back to the gym and wasn't exercising this hand. I exercised only my left side, but I did a lot of cardiovascular exercise, which they sort of said, "Oh, look, it's just the risk of infection when you've got an open wound," because there was a big cut on the side of my hand. Yeah, all of it combined rapidly improved the recovery process, and they all thought that I was, a freak. And I said, well, no, I've just, done what I think is the right thing to do, but yeah, you do get this very different, I guess. It would be really hard. And Rad and I positioned ourselves very early on to not really attract those types of people, because I used to be the back pain specialist because I've broken my back falling off a horse, and that was the first big injury I had that I just seemed to be able to help people with at the local gym that no one else would go near. I wasn't afraid to help people with lower back pain. But after a while, Rad and I started to sort of go, I don't know if we really want to be known as the back pain specialist or the weight loss specialists. We want to, because
the problem was we were in the middle of North Sydney, and everybody that we were training was office workers, and so they were all people that they weren't passionate about movement, but their bodies were really falling apart. They were either really overweight or they had really bad back pain because they were sedentary all the time. And we did that for enough years that we just got to a point where Yanni cracked it way before I did. Yanni said, and he kept bloody palming it off onto me going, you got 4 years where you're in the army. I was dealing with this the whole bloody time. And but we both ended up getting to a point where we said, I wish everybody the best, but we just don't want to work with people that are in that category, that are coming to us begging for help but aren't willing to do the work. And we made the decision many moons ago that we really wanted to work with people who had the same level of dedication and commitment that we do to our training, whether they do it as much as we do or not, the same passion for it, the same desire for it, and that's why people like you, Maren, are working with us now, and why the UMS tribe is what it is, because it's filled with people who are all passionate about what they do for physical training. We've got people that are into martial arts, we've got people that are into weightlifting, we've got people that are into bouldering or basketball or whatever it is. We've got people that are just into training, they just want to be able to train. But everybody's passionate, and they're all, if they've had an injury, they're all, shit scared about losing their ability to be able to keep training. And those kinds of people they make for a better tribe, right? Like, you see the conversations and the posts that we all have in the forums, Maren. It's a really good tribe that we've got now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think that where you draw the line, because I don't want to discourage anyone from exercising who's listening to this, and by all means, you like motion is lotion for the whole body always. So always exercise, always eat well. But I think the line is drawn for me nowadays with people that require they're hiring a personal trainer for motivation. They can't motivate themselves to exercise on their own, so they hire a personal trainer to get motivated. And I don't know because motivation is a skill, I think, that needs to be taught, and it's something that you learn over time. It strengthens, I don't think it's motivation. I don't like motivation. I'd say it's more just commitment. Discipline. Discipline, exactly. And you build your life, rituals around regular movement, and that can be in any shape or form. It can be going for a walk every day, it can be yoga every day, it can be weightlifting every day, it can be running, it can be bouldering, it can be physical activity of some sort, but you build your life around that discipline of, okay, movement is a fundamental part of my health and my longevity and my mental health, and therefore I'm going to do it every day, no matter what. Something's better than nothing. And I draw the line nowadays immediately if I find that the person is asking me to motivate them to get to that point, because I think that's just such an early stage of the journey. And there are people that really enjoy that. I've got friends who are personal trainers who run gyms that are like specifically designed for that person. You walk in there and they're going to make it a party for you every day, so you can turn up. The workouts suck and there's no structure to it. There's no progressive overload. You practically do the same thing every day. But it's like the F45 model, they motivate you. Fitness model, they motivate you. They pump you up. Yeah.
Yeah, and we got to wrap this up because Maren's got to get to work. So before we finish, Maren, anybody that's watched this far, what would you say to them if they've got a frozen shoulder or a slap tear or a shoulder injury and they're considering joining? What would you say to somebody?
I would say try it, because it was totally worth for me. And you don't have to be, as I said, the muscle-packed fitness person, weightlifter, crazy sportsman to join. You can just be the average working mother or working father or whatever student to join. And it's also awesome. You learn a lot. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And thank you guys, because you really, really, really helped me so much. I mean, I really appreciate that we could talk today, because I've never talked to you before for that whole long time.
Yeah, no, look, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoy doing these interviews because, I spend so much time coaching you guys, but it's never a two-way conversation like this. It's always reviewing your videos. So it's really nice to have that conversation with you, Marion. Thanks so much for giving us your time.
It's also very nice because it reminds Rad and I why we do what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marion, and have a wonderful day at work. I will see you in the app again soon.
Yeah. See ya. Bye.
I've